Taiwan might not necessarily be known for its theme parks, however, it's certainly home to some unique offerings, one of which includes Leofoo Village, a wildlife theme park hybrid just south of Taipei. This is the most themed park in all of Taiwan, with a hub and spokes layout jetting off into 4 distinct themed areas: South Pacific, Arabian Palace, African Tribe, and the Wild West. Each of these areas are home to some beautiful scenery and a great variety of attractions, including 3 roller coasters, multiple water rides, family flat rides, and an entire African safari. It's a park that flies under the radar and is packed full of potential, but also suffers from its fair share of problems such as ride availability. And in this video, I'm going to dive into those rides and attractions, the park's shortcomings, some of their weird quirks, and give some tips and tricks for visiting in case you one day plan a visit of your own. Now, to add a little bit of context, Leofoo Village is about a 30-minute drive south of the big Taiwan International Airport. It's also accessible by public transit, though it will take you a little bit longer, about an hour and a half, 2 hours from the airport. Should you be staying in the center of Taipei like I was, it'll take about an hour drive, give or take. It was my first time driving in Taiwan, so I took a couple wrong turns. If you don't feel comfortable driving though, there is a convenient shuttle bus that leaves from the Courtyard by Marriott in Taipei directly to Leofoo Village. Completely free, just make a reservation beforehand. If you're looking for a more immersive experience though, Leofoo Village does have their own on-site resort overlooking the African plains. Prices hover around $200 a night and admission is included, so definitely something to consider, and you just walk to the front gate. We drove from the Songshan district of Taipei, parked in the main lot. They do charge for parking, just be sure to pay for that on a kiosk as you exit. It ended up being around $6, not too bad. And immediately, I was impressed with the location of this park. It felt so secluded in the trees, and you could see the beautiful mountains off in the distance. It's really tucked away from the hustle and bustle of everything. There's a water park next door, only open in the summer. When I visited, it was the fall. Certainly warm enough for a water park day, but regardless, it was not in operation. And tickets to Leofoo Village are very affordable, around $25. And interestingly enough, should you buy your ticket online in advance, for an extra $1.50, you can get a ticket that includes a complimentary Starbucks drink. Go figure. But if you want another option, you can also get tickets at your local 7-Eleven or Family Mart, and it will be cheaper than buying at the park entrance. From the front gate, you'll take this long, narrow path to the central hub. It's a very bare, lackluster walk that you expect to open up into this big reveal, except it doesn't. And that, in my opinion, is the biggest downside of all of Leofoo Village. How do you make a first impression? Start off with a bang. Show your guests something cool, and Leofoo Village doesn't do that at all, despite the fact that each of their themed areas have some pretty amazing visuals. This central hub is ugly. Yes, I would actually use the word ugly to describe it. And that's not how you should set the tone for your visit. The water in the reflecting pools was green, there was trash floating in them. I think there's supposed to be a fountain in the center, and of course it wasn't on. The central hub here is called the Magic Plaza, and in its current state, that is absolutely not the case. Think about when you enter King's Dominion or King's Island. You have the big Eiffel Tower. Even going as far back to Disneyland, Sleeping Beauty's castle is right there at the center. That's what Leofoo Village needs. That wow spectacle that's your palate cleanser as you go from land to land. So unfortunately, not off to a great start. However, bear with me, it does get better. We'll move in the clockwise direction around the park, so we start immediately with the left-hand side, the Wild West. This has a proper main street designed to look like old America, some nice facades, Leofoo Village's version of Frontierland. They're home to 2 roller coasters, including the park's largest attraction, Screaming Condor. This is one of the few intimate impulse coasters in the entire world. You actually board below ground level and then are launched into a twisted spike on one end and then a straight vertical spike on the other. It's the best themed impulse coaster I have ever seen, and unfortunately, I didn't get to ride it. It was closed for annual maintenance. It was actually supposed to have reopened by the time we visited, but for one reason or another, it was not open. And I have a couple other friends who also visited this park and had the same issue. So I think there's a chance this ride is decently unreliable. A shame I wasn't able to do it, but luckily I have done near clones of it before. And they are fun rides. Certainly an interesting headlining attraction for Leofoo Village. I've always considered this ride style a supporting addition. I think they need a bigger coaster, something with a full circuit layout to have as your headliner. A land like South Pacific coming up has a lot of room, some really cool attractions, but there's no roller coaster over there. I think it'd be sick to see something there one day, though I am not expecting a new roller coaster anytime soon. They have not added one in over 20 years, which is really unfortunate because when I visited, it was actually decently busy, and I've seen videos of this park. I actually think it does pretty well for itself. If any park in Taiwan was to get a new roller coaster, I believe it'd be Leofoo Village. And it's not like their other roller coasters are anything noteworthy either. Nearby is a Vekoma Jr. coaster known as Little Rattler, a cute little attraction in like a house-themed station, and they actually installed these like wood-looking boards underneath to give the ride a mine train effect. So that was actually a nice little thoughtful addition. Next door is a 360 flat ride called Old Oil Well. There's a set of teacups called the Drunken Wine Barrel, that's pretty funny, and our first water ride known as Grand Canyon Rapids. No actual canyon in sight, it just goes through the woods, but certainly one of the more popular attractions in the park. And before continuing any further, I have to address the elephant in the room. You might see a lot of these Halloween decorations around the land. I did go in October, that's during their Tombstone event. Most of the park looks the same as it would during the summer. This is the one land that they go all out for with Halloween. And they certainly had a dark twist on it with lots of dead babies hanging from the trees. I know it's spooky season, guys, but wow, that's kind of intense. Anyways, to the right is South Pacific, my favorite themed land in the park. This was absolutely beautiful, and what a first impression that you get with that stunning entrance sign and just these huge waterfalls coming down off the side. At least, normally they would be. It was 80 degrees out and didn't seem like there was a single working water feature in the entire park. But in this land, we have this nice covered dragon flat ride, a small little boat where you go out on like a Moana-style raft. There's a big old swinging ship themed to Captain Cook, and a decent-sized drop tower known as Pagoda's Revenge. The attraction stands 173 feet tall, or 53 meters, but you actually load below ground. It's got this incredible themed queue, and as you rise up, you pass inside this top piece that's this huge head at the top of the tower, and then it suddenly releases you and you fall back down to the ground. It was manufactured by Intamin, and it's a great drop. My experience on it, though, was very interesting. They were only running 2 of the sides at the time, and when I went to board, I guess they decided that wasn't enough, and they removed a temporarily closed for maintenance sign that they had draped over one of the non-operational vehicles, put us on it, and dispatched the ride. And then after we got off, they put the temporary maintenance sign back over the vehicle. Like, okay, yeah, that's not a red flag at all. I guess they do things a little different out here. And finally, that brings us to Mighty Mountain Flume Adventure, what I would consider the ride of the park. And all the marketing materials, this is the shot, and understandably so. It is unbelievably cool looking, one of the best flumes I've ever seen. And you know what? It delivered in ride experience. The perfect amount of wetness that I would expect from a flume. First, you rise 3 stories up through all this rockwork, pass under bridges, and you go down a decent-sized drop, and then you rise back up, now 5 stories up, big drop, past some dinosaurs, and the second drop is wetter than the first. My only critique would be I really feel like it needs music, which in theory should be a simple fix. They've already spent the money to create this beautiful theming. How hard would it be to play just some jungle music at the top? One little neat attraction, though, that they offer in the same structure, talk about great use of space, you can take this walkthrough up to the top of the mountain called the Lost World. It allows you to get really close to some of these dinosaurs. And you know, so much of this land feels like an authentic Polynesian representation. It's a beautiful tribute to their culture, but I guess they decided that wasn't enough because they're like, you know what this place needs? Dinosaurs. Whatever floats your boat, I guess. But we'll move on to Arabian Palace. Probably my second favorite land of Leofoo Village. It is straight out of Aladdin, and they are not even kind of subtle about it. Arabian Palace completely immerses you with its huge walls on all sides. So once you are in, you are in. You can't see the other lands. It is very impressive, so much so that the only other land comparison I could make to this would be the one at Disney Sea. You have this beautiful carousel centerpiece, the coolest looking Larson loop on the planet next door. Like, what a backdrop. This might not be my favorite kind of ride, but it was so freaking cool looking. Even I was like, dang, should I ride the Larson loop? They also have a set of flying carpets. That was not in operation during our visit. And one of these buildings is a laser maze called Anubis. Interestingly enough, the longest line of the park. Would you believe people were waiting 50 minutes to experience this? Kind of crazy. We ended up not doing any of the attractions in this land just due to high wait times. And that includes their flying horse like monorail style transportation attraction. Actually includes some indoor show scenes. Definitely something I would have liked to have done and would do next time. But the whole time I was in this land, I was thinking, man, I feel like they need a dark ride here. like a good dark ride, and apparently they used to have one. Behind the Larson Loop is an abandoned Indiana Jones style dark ride, and I have no idea why it's been closed off, and what a shame, because that's exactly what they need. The attraction was called Sultan's Adventure, I believe manufactured by Intamin, where you'd board these jeeps. 10 years now that it's been closed, and crazy that a quality attraction like that could sit standing but not operating for so long. I have no idea what happened. As of right now, the only media-based attraction that they even have in the park is this 5D theater. It's called Happy and Honey's Adventure, where you just sit in these seats, put on 3D glasses, and it'll shake you around a bit. Something I'd consider doing next time, but man, I'm just bummed about this dark ride. What a shame that they'd have so many closed rides. And finally, that brings us to African Tribe. This is where we get all of our animals, but that being said, they do have a couple rides. So I'll quickly go through those. That's where we have our last roller coaster. It's called Sahara Twist. It's an Intamin spinning coaster, one of only 3 of its kind in the world. The other operates at Lotte World in South Korea and Hopi Hari in Brazil. Mauer actually has a similar version of this, and at first I thought it was the same kind of ride. If you go to Drively in the Netherlands, they have a ride called Tweestreaks. Felt very, very similar to this. We ended up spending a decent amount. Overall, very quirky and kind of odd attraction. Spread across the land is a slow-moving observation attraction, giving riders the chance to pedal over pathways and various animal exhibits. This whole nature trail strays away from the loud attractions. It's way more forested, and there's a ton of different species of monkeys. Probably the most relaxing section of Leofoo Village. I would say the signature attraction, though, of this land would be the Safari Train Nairobi Express. This is a slow-moving, round-trip train that'll take you around to see the different herbivores of Leofoo Village. We got to see buffalo, ostriches, hippos, warthogs, giraffes. Really nice stuff, and it's a big space here. Kind of puts it in perspective just how much land they own at this park. If there's a downside to this train though, it did take a long time to load and they only had 1 train. You're not moving very fast. They easily could run 2, I wish that they would. So be prepared for a decent wait. And next door, if you want to go see the carnivores, you could board one of their safari trucks. So nice that they have 2 different ride experiences so you can see 2 different types of animals. If you want to see everything, you gotta do both. The truck, train, and nature walk are not the only places you can see animals, however. Right at the start of the land, when you're coming from the Arabian Palace, is a bunch of miniature horses, goats, and sheep, this big old petting zoo. It's a nice environment for kids, though I'll admit, I think some of the places that they were being kept were a little small, and the habitats they have for some of the other animals are huge, so I'd like to see them reconfigure this space. Not only would it give them more room, but it also improve things thematically. In its current form, this side of the African section is the weakest of the 4 lands. Literally, the first thing you see is just this big wall of the African savanna, and that's just a very bizarre transition choice. I know they can do better because they've shown us they can do better. But that pretty much does it for a lap around the park. As for food, I only had 1 meal at Leofoo Village. I had some big pieces of fried chicken in the African section. We were able to get that plus 2 drinks for $12 US. So really, that exchange rate was just working in our favor. From what I saw, it seemed like the big signature restaurant of the park was the Oasis restaurant in the Arabian Palace section. It's this big indoor dining location that's more or less themed to the Blue Genie. So, just a couple final thoughts. The Arabian and South Pacific lands stand out to me as the best parts of Leofoo Village. Really fantastic job with immersing their guests. The roller coasters and log flume that we experienced all had great operations. I also really enjoyed seeing all the animals. There's enough to see here that you can make a full day out of it. That being said, if they want their guests to stay longer, they're going to need to open up more rides. There was a lack of indoor attractions to escape the heat, and the few that they had all had really long lines because they were down additional capacity. When that many attractions are closed, you feel it across the park. And I understand that this is a year-round property. They're open pretty much daily, so that means they gotta do their annual maintenance at some point. But this was just real frustrating as someone who's traveled from across the world to go here, doesn't know if we'll ever go back. You want to make the best impression you can, and I think Leofoo Village succeeded in some ways and it failed in others. And that kind of leads me to the conclusion that this is a park packed full of potential. They know how to create a detailed land, they know how to create a compelling animal exhibit, but as a theme park operator, it needs some work. And I think with just a few simple changes, reopening some of these attractions, reimagine that central hub, invest in even 1 or 2 new rides, I think that'll make a big difference. But you can let me know down in the comments below if you've experienced Leofoo Village, if you agree with the points that I brought up, if you think there's anything I missed, Be sure to post it down below, and of course stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.